Welcome in and welcome aboard. We are here. I am one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good morning, good sir. How are you?
I'm doing good, Blake. I got to be honest with you. I know that we can't do it consistently, but I kind of like it when we do the morning shows. I don't know what it is. We get it out. We get the show out of the way. The whole rest of the day is ahead of us. Start our day with energy.
My wife is begging me to change times.
To do morning shows?
To do morning shows. And I'm like, listen, honey, listen. More people are on YouTube from 6 to 7 and from 7 to 8 every single night. We got to make that money. And by the way, don't tell her I said this. I just bought her a massive Christmas present last night. So we're going to stay at 6 and 7, but you have been so kind. I have some family in town. We're going out to eat with my father tonight. So we had to go a little bit live, a little bit early. So I greatly appreciate you deviating your times here, Joe. But I do love a good morning show. I just feel like when you go throughout the whole day and you can get everything, you can respond at night to everything that's going on throughout the day. But, you know, it's kind of things have kind of starting to calm down on this situation. But by the way, did you see the biggest move in the coaching carousel of all season happened yesterday? Did you see this?
Which one are you talking about?
So it wasn't Lane Kiffin. It wasn't Alex Golish. It wasn't anything going on at Ole Miss. Did you see what happened in Happy Valley yesterday when Matt Campbell was announced as the head coach of Penn State?
I did not.
He walked into the press conference and he goes to a locker. And on the hook is a hat. And he grabs the hat and he starts bending the bill into a V.
I saw you commented on this.
He is a fantastic coach. Matt Campbell is going to really work at Penn State. I really love that hire. However, is he going to be in the next season of Dexter? Because psychopaths bend their hats that way. It's not about a bent bill. It's about you can't go full V. This isn't The Boy.
I don't disagree. I found it really funny. I knew that based on this show and you constantly bringing up and me noticing the way that he was bending his bill, I didn't know it was so signature to that degree that they got a video of him doing it before putting the hat on. I don't know why he does it. I got to know why. I don't know if it's some sort of weird nervous tick or some sort of, I don't know. Someone's got to tell him it doesn't look good. Someone's got to give him a better hat. I don't disagree with you on this. I have that and the Ryan Day beard dye. Those are two of the worst things that coaches do.
Oh, hold on.
In college football.
I can understand the beard dye because, listen, again, when you get married, there are things that you will compromise on. Now, I have told my wife, look, my receding hairline's going back. You know, I'm at the Rotary Club yesterday, the local Rotary Club, as a guest speaker talking about Ruffino and Joe show and AYS. And I'm like, all right, my receding hairline's getting bad. But I am who I am. I did dye my beard for my wife.
No.
My wife made me dye my beard because I got this, it starts turning orange, you know. I start getting red hair because it's starting to turn white. So you can't have that. So I understand the beard dye thing. What I don't understand is the bent bill. It is the wildest thing in all of this coaching search. And I am not going to get off of that. That is for sure. But here's the thing, Joe. This coaching carousel is far from over. So we'll get into it right now. But before we do that, everyone do us a favor by hitting the like and share. Share to all those groups if you're on Facebook and to all those social media pages. You're watching us, listening to us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, notification bell. Hit that subscribe button down below wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe. Every Ruffino and Joe show is brought to you by our good friends and partners over at FanDuel. Download the FD Sportsbook app. Today, you can place those bets. Who do you think is going to win the Heisman? Joe has given you those odds multiple times. Who do you think is going to win in the playoffs? Are you going to ride the Cinderella story of James Madison, or are you going to go with the favorite in Ohio State? You can place that bet with our good friends over at FanDuel. Thoughts, questions, concerns, go to FanDuel.com/RG for more details. Joe, we talked about the coaching carousel here and how this thing has already been in college football very chaotic. And I think in the NFL, it's starting to, even right now, it's starting to get a little bit crazy because the New York Giants have a head coaching opportunity. Chip Kelly got fired as the OC in Las Vegas. But there's been a lot of word out there about Notre Dame head coach Marcus Freeman, and the odds being out there that he is the Lone Star favorite to be the next head coach of the New York Giants. I'm just going to kick this off to you. I'm going to wait to say what I want to say, but thoughts on Marcus Freeman and all this buzz being around him being the next head coach of the New York Giants?
Yeah, I'm obviously very embedded into this situation because I cover the Giants. I follow Notre Dame very closely because I'm a Notre Dame fan. I really love Marcus Freeman, and I really want the Giants to get this head coaching hire done correctly. I have a couple of things with this. Dan Duggan tweeted this, and I thought it was a really good point over at The Athletic. He acknowledged that just because the odds say a certain coach is leading does not mean that they have information.
See, Florida.
Right. They have algorithms that are built in order to maximize wherever the direction of the betting market is going. It's complicated. It's something that I'm not going to pretend to understand. I think most fans don't really understand how that stuff works. It's very complex. So I don't think that automatically means that Marcus Freeman's going to the Giants. He is apparently interviewing. It does seem like that there is absolutely interest. Marcus Freeman is going to be every single cycle, just like Dan Lanning has been brought up in the mix for NFL jobs because he's a great young coach who has motivated and developed and built a winning culture at Notre Dame. He got his team to a national championship very, very early in his time with Notre Dame. It is respectable, the path that he has built. I do not think that he is ultimately going to take this job. I think that he is going to stick in college because I just don't think that there is going to be alignment for him, this being his best path. Like his road to success has been through recruiting. It has been through recruiting and developing relationships with young men. I think that Marcus Freeman eventually could maybe become an NFL head coach, but I don't think at this current moment it makes sense. It's just not aligned for what the Giants need and for what Marcus Freeman does best. I don't think that style of coach works with the Giants. I think maybe in 10 years from now, when he's really embedded in in-game situations and understanding how to handle those things, I think that we are way too far from that. The other part with this, Marcus Freeman needs to be smart enough not to take a job like this because Joe Shane is a lame duck general manager. And he might not even, first of all, be making this decision at the end of the year. It has been brought up by Shane in his press conference that they are going to reevaluate if he is going to keep his job at the end of the season. So any buzz that's happening right now could be squashed by the time a new GM comes in. But taking a job with a GM that's going to get fired after next season that sucks at his job is going to tank him. It is going to hurt his ability to succeed in the NFL. Marcus Freeman, do not take the Giants job. They are a mess of a franchise at the current moment. That is a job that somebody who has been a head coach in the NFL for a period of time needs to go and take. You will get screwed over because the Giants do not know how to operate. I think that, and I'm hoping that this doesn't result in Freeman leaving for the NFL.
I was going to ask you about, but you kind of already articulated this. I do think that the Giants are a really interesting run franchise, like meaning that they've had success. I don't think Marcus Freeman fits, even though he's a really good head coach. What do I mean by that? You need a Tom Coughlin in New York. You want to know why the Jets and the Giants keep not succeeding? Well, you're going to have to start giving autonomy, kind of like what Denver did to Sean Payton. You're going to have to start giving sort of autonomy to some of these really good coaches. Joe Shane had a chance, and we all saw this, where he wanted to move up for Jaden Daniels, and he couldn't do it. He didn't want to do it. I just think the Giants are a really bad run franchise. If this were like, let me just say it like this. If this were Dallas, if this were Green Bay, and even Dallas to that point, if this were another franchise that had shown that they will give you autonomy for success, that would be one thing. But the Giants have been in a situation, and I know that you love your team, Joe, and I'm not trying to poo-poo on them, but I have a team like that too in the Saints, right? Like bad run franchises are badly run franchises. And the two times that you had success there, what did you do? You gave autonomy to the head coach on what he wanted and what he needed. I think Notre Dame's the better job. I know it's
Yeah.
New York. I know like we live, and I know that you're from the area and you know this better than most. But New York is different than the way that we perceive it. Right? Like New York has had so many people move out of it in reference to outer city. Like we look at LA, we look at New York, we look at big cities like Chicago. People are moving outside of the big cities. Now, that's just a geographical thing. New York is still going to be New York. The you taking me down to Little Italy is still going to be Little Italy, right? But at the same time, Notre Dame is the better job. It will continue to be. Look, I think Marcus Freeman, for what it's worth, he's 43-12 at Notre Dame. Notre Dame and him had to live through some early coaching mistakes, right? Because he's learning on the job in some aspects early on in this, but he found his footing really quickly. If I'm advising Marcus Freeman, I'm not even remotely. I would interview, because interviewing is interviewing. You don't turn down an interview. Well, let me tell you what you don't do. If this were like the Browns, yeah, you can turn down the Browns head coaching search. You don't turn down New York Giants. You don't turn down that interview, right? Like you got to take the interview because it's a massive franchise. However, I look at Marcus Freeman, and I saw some of the clips like announcing CJ Carr and bringing in CJ Carr to tell him he was going to be the starting quarterback. I look at Marcus Freeman from afar, and the things that I've seen, he's got the Saban factor in this regard. He likes to have the control on how the program is run. You're not going to get that here, and you're not going to get that in the NFL. Look what he's done in the secondary. Look what he just did again in their secondary. He can't do that. He's not going to have that ability to do that. And I think that if you can sustain with NIL and the portal and all of that, which I do think that Notre Dame somewhat gets absolved from because of the academics, right? Like a lot of kids don't like, there's a lot of issues. Like I remember Logan Diggs when he transferred, like 17 credits didn't transfer over to LSU. It's a hard situation to come from there. So you're kind of insulated into that situation. But Notre Dame is by far the better job. And I know it's both of your programs and both of the teams that you love, but Notre Dame clear to me is the better job, and you're building something. Look, Kirby Smart, it took a while to get this thing running. It took Ryan Day how long? Marcus Freeman's going to break through here. And I think he needs to continue to plug on what he's doing. The NFL's the NFL, though. And he's got, what, 6 kids? You can have a whole summer. You can have a whole summer with your children. You get what I'm saying? Like you can actually be around your children more. But Notre Dame is the best job out of both of these scenarios.
That's where I come down with this. It just very simply, maybe the other way of framing it, it's the better fit. It is the best fit for him to stick with Notre Dame. You have achieved getting to a national championship. Take it a step further. Win a national championship. I think that before you make a leap like that, you're so young in your coaching career. Take advantage of the fact that you built up a foundation quicker than most people could. And you've got a really, really good locker room, and everybody is aligned on the same vision. Starting from scratch, if things don't work out with the Giants, is going to be painful. And you don't know what kind of a job that you're going to be offered after that. I just don't think that the state of the Giants at the current moment are what Marcus Freeman should want to buy into. Mm-hmm. I think that, to your point, the Giants job is one that is highly sought after and will be, because they have one of the best situations with having Dart, having Abdul Carter, having a bunch of really good defensive linemen and Malik Neighbors. It has a very rare situation, kind of like the Bears last year, where they had a core where the right coach steps in and they just take off and run with it. But you need somebody who is going to be able to capitalize on that. I would only think that, like, if Marcus Freeman's going to leave somewhere where it is already established. Like if Andy Reid retired, right. Well, I was going to say, like, I think that if a coach retires and they want to figure out who to take next, like that's where if they called Freeman and he left for that, I wouldn't blame him. You get to coach Patrick Mahomes. You're taking a team that's already built their own culture and all that stuff. That to me is less egregious, but trying to build up something that is poorly run is not worth doing.
For what it's worth, I just want to throw this in there. I think Sark would be an idiot to go to Tennessee for leaving Texas.
Franchise.
It's a horribly run franchise. I mean, look at Vrabel. Look at Vrabel. Look at what just happened. You're right. I think fit is a big deal here. And look, college coaches sometimes have an issue with transitioning into that situation. Marcus cannot leave this. He cannot leave this place. And listen, I understand what just happened to you, right? Being left out of the playoff. I understand that Pete Bavach was out there saying some stuff, and there's a lot of chaos, but it is by far the better job here. And I just don't think that you should do it. Yeah. All right. Another thing I'd say on Freeman too, man, I like seeing some of those clips with CJ Carr. Did you see him? Do you know what ones I'm talking about? That
didn't catch him.
There's a clip on Twitter. Go find it. He brings him into his office. By the way, that man's got more snacks in his office than any coach I've ever seen in my life. But he sits him down and walks him through and says, hey, man, this was tough. This was the toughest decision that I think I've made as a head coach. And I just look at Marcus in a completely different light. I mean, I know he knows he's getting recorded, so it might be a little bit different. But, I mean, at the same time, I just felt like I saw a lot more of him. It looks like he wants to be a molder of men.
This is my point. He's so good at connecting with guys that are 18 to 22. I genuinely, and I don't think that this might be misconstrued, I don't think veterans that are in their 30s are going to connect with him the same way that these young guys do. I just don't.
No, it's the Kiffin and Saban thing. When you have that level of control and you can dictate the outcomes of what you're doing, I mean, Joe, we're talking about teams that you can get 10 kids from the portal that changes your career. Winadad Chambliss, hello. I mean, you can't. I mean, it's differently run in the NFL like that. So, all right. Let's move on here. Joe, we continue on our segments here talking about what teams need to do to win national titles. We did this last year. We did it last night. We're going to do it again for all of these playoff teams. Maybe not Tulane and James Madison. Maybe you're going to make me do that. But
no, we're not.
Continue on our path here. And another team that is positioned in a really good position right now is the Oregon Ducks at the number 5 seed. I do think that as this playoff continues, that number 5 seed's probably going to be the most sought after you see Penn State, you see Oregon here for the back-to-back years of this college football playoff. But, Joe, you look at the Oregon Ducks and you look at their chances with Dan Lanning and company to win a national title. When you preview what they got to do to get there, when you preview their path in getting there, what does Oregon need to do to win a national title?
Oregon's one of those teams where their top priority for things that need to happen in order for them to win a national championship, it's almost out of their control. They're a team that they got to get healthy. They got to get healthy at wide receiver. I understand that we talked about this yesterday, that there's maybe an inkling of a chance that Evan Stewart comes back into the mix and you're able to get him on the field. That to me would be transformative. If he suddenly just reappeared and you were able to add him to your wide receiver room and you got DK Moore back, they could be the most unexpectedly dangerous team in the playoff field. They could be in a position that they would be like most well-equipped for the most random reason of getting a guy who had a serious injury in the offseason back right at the right time. Blake, if they're fully healthy at receiver, they can do so much. But my other side of this is I've framed looking ahead for these teams, why I'm bought into Oregon, despite that one lingering problem for them, their ability to command the line of scrimmage on offense, the ability to run down their opponents by running the rock hard, got 3 different running backs that you can turn to that all produce big plays and different body types that work in specific situations. Like, I'm bought in on Oregon because of that. As we always talk about, when the playoff comes around, the teams that have advantages along the lines of scrimmage are the ones that are going to find success. They've got a really good defensive line. They've got a solid offensive line, and they've got 3 really damn good running backs. Like, I think that to me could truly, truly set the tone.
When I look at Oregon, so we're doing a segment in reference to what this team's got to do to win a national title. I look at your first round matchup in James Madison, and I feel very confident about where you sit there. Mm-hmm. I look at your second round matchup potentially being Texas Tech, and I say to myself, it's not so much of what you have to do. It's, again, and I know we talked about this last night, but things that you got to avoid. With all due respect to Texas Tech, with all due respect to James Madison, I think Oregon is the more talented team against both of those opponents. I look at the defensive line. I look at the offensive line. You talked about the running game. We talk about Dante Moore. I mean, Joe, Texas Tech, for what it's worth, they have not seen a quarterback like that. They have not seen a running game like that. And we previewed that James Madison game earlier in the week. But you're positioned in a really good place. And we just saw a team last year in Penn State who was put in the same exact position that you're currently in. And what did they do? Now, I'm not saying that you're going to be on the same path and you get to the Final Four, but, Joe, they have a really good chance and a really good path to get there. They have the easiest path of all of the teams. And I know that that's going to come off in a lot of different ways. Texas Tech fans right now hate my guts at the current moment for a lot of reasons. But let's just be real on the scenario. They have the easiest path. I think of the great movie Aladdin when the genie is telling him to be yourself. Be yourself. I know wide receiver later in this playoff is going to be a situation where we got to look at what's up with Evan Stewart. Is he going to have any chance to go whatsoever? What's up with DeCorian Moore? What is up with some of these things at wide receiver? You do got to get healthy. But if you're going to be yourself, you're going to beat James Madison. I think that you will beat Texas Tech based off of just who you are. With all of that being said, the number one thing that I look at with Oregon is, number one, where you are in this bracket, you have the best chances right now to get to the Final Four. You do, based off of all the teams and where you could have been placed. Joe, I don't know. I want to see Texas Tech. I want to see James Madison go up against a team that's going to be this physical along the offensive line. Now, Texas Tech has been really good in their front seven, and we will break that game down when it happens. Mm-hmm. But I think the separation part for me right now, and I'm only talking about you getting to the Final Four, because once you're in there, Joe, we have no idea what's going to happen. You get a rematch with Indiana. You get to play some of these teams that are on your side of the bracket. Joe, I think they can beat them. Like, I do think that they can get there. Take care of your first two opponents. Don't overlook situations like Penn State did a year ago. So I bring all that up to say, you got to do what you do. Be yourself. Because we can talk about X's and O's. We can talk about the three-headed monster at running back. We can talk about all of these different things. No. Just do what you've been doing, and you're going to be fine. By the way, this secondary has been really good. Again, they're third in the country in passing yards allowed. If they continue, I wonder, in a second rematch versus Indiana, I wonder versus James Madison, who can't throw the football. I wonder versus Texas Tech, who have they're not going to say that they didn't, but I think still has some struggles offensively. I think that they have the best path to win this thing and get a rematch potentially with Indiana to go to a national title.
You just brought up the rematch there, and that's the thing that I'm most compelled by about the path that comes ahead for them. I think first of all, with Texas Tech, that's a winnable matchup because it would be the most challenging team that Texas Tech would have faced. It would be the best offensive line that Texas Tech had faced. It would be a real prove-it moment for Texas Tech, which we're going to talk about. I think it's an advantage, even though Indiana has produced one of the most impressive wins of the year by beating Ohio State last week. It is really hard to beat a good team twice. It is a cliche that we say over and over and over again on this show, and a lot of times it comes to fruition. Dan Lanning, to me, is not the type of coach that is going to lose to Indiana twice. I really have faith that Indiana is going to do some great things during this playoff, but they have that advantage of getting to face off with a team that they lost to not that long ago, but long enough ago that they've been able to reevaluate, collect themselves, and realize what they need to do differently. And if they do get back Evan Stewart and DK Moore for that game, I wonder how that game ends up transpiring and how it ends up going down. Oregon, if you can get a really solid win against Texas Tech, I think it's on the table for them to beat Indiana. And I'm not implying that it would be a blowout, but it feels like we could end up with a situation just like last year where Oregon was on the flip side of this. They got the rematch against Ohio State, and game was over in an instant because Ryan Day's team was locked in and they were ready to go. They were firing. I don't think that it would necessarily be a blowout, but we saw the difference of a rematch getting a second shot at a team and you have been locked in on getting revenge, what that does. When the margins are very, very close in a game like that, I think that translates. So that is an underlying, more ambiguous reason why Oregon could end up reaching a national title, is because that Chick-fil-A matchup that they'd had, the Chick-fil-A Bowl matchup that they would have, would be an advantage of getting to see Indiana for a second time.
Can you imagine Oregon have to go all the way to Atlanta?
That is actually crazy. That is really crazy.
That's very nuts. Well, Dan Lanning back in Georgia. Last time he was there, he got beat by 50 by Kirby Smart.
Yeah.
Look, you talked about something there in a potential rematch. And what separates me, look, James Madison, it's not this big of a deal. Dante Moore's the separation factor with me with Texas Tech. How much has he grown? Now, I told you this the other night. Again, I know people don't agree with me on this. I think a lot of these young quarterbacks need to come back. Ty Simpson, Dante Moore. I would even make an argument, which you're going to yell at me about, Fernando Mendoza. But a lot of these guys have come back. I've seen a lot of growth from Dante Moore. That Iowa game, holy growth. Holy growth. And I think that he's your separation factor here. So we'll see. All right. Let's move on to another team here. Joe, Texas A&M for the first time in either a BCS or a 14 playoff or a 12-team playoff has now entered the field. As Texas A&M is the 7th seed, and they are in the playoff field here. I know that you've already said the statement that Texas A&M is your playoff sleeper. They go up against Miami in round 1. When you look at Texas A&M and what you think that they need to do to win a national title, what are your thoughts? What do they have to do to find themselves in the national title picture?
I think top priority is that Marcel Reed needs to eliminate turnovers. Marcel Reed has to protect the ball a lot better. He has to stop taking unnecessary risks. And when things aren't going his way, he needs to calm down. It felt like and he did end up responding in the South Carolina game, was a really good example of how he was able to handle adversity. But the Texas game, he let the mistakes compound. He let it snowball. It seems like it got to him, and he just kept making worse and worse mistakes with the turnovers that he had in that matchup. Like, a reason why folks should buy into this Texas A&M team is what we saw that they did in the second half against South Carolina. They weren't able to replicate it against Texas, but the ability for A&M to have so much speed at receivers, so much explosiveness, that they can just produce big play after big play after big play and attack downfield. Having that makes them the most dangerous team no matter the score in the playoff field. They could be down by multiple touchdowns and they can get back into it. But it all comes down to, if that has to occur, Marcel Reed needs to be as locked in as he was in the second half against South Carolina. He has to. LSU. Right. He has to be. Yeah, that's another good example, is the LSU game where he responded in the second half. He can't let the Texas game linger. He can't let those issues and those mistakes linger. Otherwise, we're just going to see another dud. They have an ability that no other team has in my eyes because they have so much speed at wide receiver.
So the number one thing in all of this, it's not the run defense. It's not all the things that we've been talking about with them over the last month. You know, the turnovers, then the coming back, then obliterating a top 25 defense in LSU in the second half. They play bad competition, like all of that. None of that matters anymore. I think that they're a bad matchup for multiple teams. I look at them against Miami and say, listen, I saw two premier wide receivers obliterate Miami. Obliterate. I saw a quarterback in Kevin Jennings who, yes, on the stat sheet, didn't light the world on fire when it comes to rushing the football. An injured mobile quarterback didn't light the world on fire. But if you go and watch that game in the second half, what happened? What happened in that fourth quarter? Joe, how many times did Kevin Jennings run for first downs on that game time, or the game scoring, or the scoring drive that tied the game to ultimately beat Miami? What did he do? He ran for 2 first downs. And Marcel Reed can definitely extend plays with his legs. He's got to process better. You know how big of a stickler I am on turnovers. You can't have them. And when the field starts to shrink, meaning when the field of teams starts to shrink, you cannot turn the ball over against Miami, and you can't do it against Ohio State, because those teams are going to make you pay. They're going to make you pay. And I don't think defensively you have enough to not be on in the next 4 games. You're going to have to be locked in and on the next 4 games, because this defense, all while really good and getting after the quarterback and generating havoc and getting to the quarterback with sacks and tackles for loss and being the number 1 team in the country on third down, none of that matters because you have leaks there. But I look at them as a matchup to Miami and to Ohio State, and I saw Miami go up against the 2 best receivers that they did all year and get obliterated. And I think Casey Concepcion is better than the 2 wide receivers that they played earlier in the season. Joe, I think this Becker kid at Indiana can play, and I look at Ohio State and go, if that guy can constantly get vertical on you with post routes, fades, things of that nature, do you change your game plan if you're Matt Patricia? Maybe, but you only gave up 13 points against Indiana. It's not like their defense got beat bad. If Becker can get vertical, if Surratt can get vertical on the back shoulder throw fade from Mendoza, Joe, I think Casey Concepcion, for what it's worth, I know me and you have gone round and round about this, I think he's a top 3 receiver in the draft. I don't think it's remotely close. I think that he is a smaller version of Jalen Waddle. That's what I see. The way that he's in and out of routes, the way that he goes in the slot and can go to the boundary, this dude is amazing. Watch what happens when teams start getting vertical on you. Now, I do think that their offensive line, for what it's worth, could make an argument that it's the most physical offensive line in the field. They got to get healthy. They got to start leaning more in their running game. But here's the thing with me with A&M. Is Colin Klein going to be locked in like Brian Hartline wasn't? And I think that when you have a situation where the old staff at Kansas State is going to help out Colin Klein, they're not going to a bowl game, it can help him better in reference to a transition at Kansas State. I do worry, and I do wonder what this offense looks like with so much on Colin Klein's plate. But can this team lock in? Texas A&M finally, Joe, I think, made it to a place where they can say that they're part of the SEC. What do I mean by that? I think a lot of people knew, obviously, A&M was in the SEC. Nobody denied that. But until you get into an SEC championship game, until you get into a playoff, everyone looked at Missouri as having more consistent success in the SEC than you did. You had a statement win versus Notre Dame earlier in the year. And now you can go and put your stamp on something that Texas wasn't able to do this year. Joe, a lot of us thought Texas would be the team out of the state of Texas to make it to the playoff, not A&M. Like we weren't there. Offensively, they're going to have to control the game. And I don't think that that's Mike Elko's strong suit. Let me explain this, and the last thing I'd say. They got to run the ball more. If Marcel Reed is having mistakes and constantly having turnovers, lean to the physical backs that you do have. You don't have to continue to hit massive plays and try to hit massive plays all over again. What happened when you were down in multiple situations? Joe, you can't throw. LSU might have had the best secondary in the country this year. DJ Pickett's a freshman of the year. Mansour DeLane's a All-American. AJ Halsey's a first-team All-SEC safety. No, what were you doing? Run the ball. You got to start controlling the clock a little bit better and controlling the game a little bit better, which is what Mike Elko is going to have to do versus Miami and Ohio State to have a chance to get to the national title here.
I think one thing that really intrigues me.
Let me just say this. If they're able to knock off Miami and Ohio State, there's not going to be a lot of teams that can slow them down. Sorry, go ahead.
Right. One thing that really intrigues me is if there's a team that's equipped to do what Ohio State did last year, it's 100, 1,000, 1,000,000% Texas A&M. They are in literally the same exact situation. They lost to their bitter rival that knocked them out of the playoff field, that didn't have they're not even Texas isn't even in the playoff field, knocked them out of the SEC championship game. This A&M team, if they're pissed off and they're motivated and they get locked in, they can replicate the Ohio State run from last year. They have similarities too. Athletes all over their defense, athletes all over their offense.
Mm-hmm.
If you're able to use that as internal motivation to carry yourself through the playoff, they're able to go on their own Death Star type run to just dominate their way through who they're supposed to face. And I know that there's tough opponents on there, but let's look at the similarities in their path as well. Going up against an orange team at home in a situation where said orange team did some good things, but they don't know what they're stepping into. Then you come back around, you're facing off with a team that is considered to be a favorite, that is the most likely team to go on a run and to win a national championship in Ohio State. You have a chance to stun them and then get to the national championship with an opportunity to just carry that momentum, as you mentioned here. The biggest question comes down to, would they be able to beat Georgia if that's who they were to face? And I think that one could argue that is the most explosive receiver room that Georgia has gone up against. And we watched Alabama find ways to produce big plays with their speed against Georgia's secondary earlier in the year. There is one of the most underrated and most favorable paths in my eyes for a team that does not have a bye. I saw some people saying that A&M has a tough path. I think we got to look at individual matchups here. There is opportunities for A&M to capitalize on a number of things for Ohio State and for Georgia, for them to win and for them to get to a national championship.
I got to be blunt. I do think they have the toughest draw.
Out of who, though? They're the 7 seed.
Out of everybody. I think them and Miami have the toughest draw because if you look at A&M, okay, you got Miami. They're a very physical, athletic team as well. Then you got Ohio State, and then you could potentially play Georgia. I mean, it is the toughest draw in all of this. Miami and them have the toughest draw. I do agree with you, though. There's a counteract to that they match up with those teams well, too. But they have the toughest draw in all of this. Like, I look at Georgia as an example. I look at all these other teams. Well, Ole Miss has got Tulane at home. They already blew them out by 35.
But then they got to play Georgia.
Right, but you still have 2 games. Like, would you rather face Tulane round 1 or Miami?
Obviously, you'd rather face Tulane.
Right. So, both of those games, though, like, you're bringing in Miami and Ohio State. Like, that's a tough draw. I look at Indiana as an example, too. I see a lot of people saying, Indiana has the toughest draw. We're about to talk about Alabama next. No, they don't. Neither one of – Oklahoma or Alabama, neither one of them can run the football.
Well, okay, so what I'm kind of getting at, though, is I think it's – if we just look at the brands and who they're facing, it does look like from a distance that A&M has a tough draw. Yes. But what I'm trying to be more specific about is that I think of the potential dark horse candidates, A&M is the most equipped to go on a run. They have advantages over Miami. They have advantages that they could take advantage of over Ohio State. They have advantages to take advantage of over Georgia. I think that because they tumbled so far, our perception is that they're a very flawed team when they're really not. They had one bad game against Texas with correctable issues. I think that like Alabama / Oklahoma have a really, really bad matchup with Indiana because their problems are going to get accentuated against Indiana's strengths.
Right.
And Texas Tech / Oregon, that head-to-head matchup for the two of them could really go either direction depending on who has the hotter game up front along the lines of scrimmage. So I'm just trying to frame it as more so A&M, if they play like the version of them that we saw in the middle of the year and up until the Texas game, that version is a team that goes to a national championship against the specific teams that they have to play. It's hard because they're playing good teams, but if there is a team that's equipped to go on a run and put together upsets, I think it's A&M.
I don't disagree with that, but it's still very tough. I mean,
yeah.
Dude, Ruben Bain might be the number 1 overall pick.
It's probably going to be a quarterback or Arvell Reese.
I mean, I get it. Non-quarterback, he might be the first guy off the board.
It's going to be Arvell Reese.
Very well could be. By the way, I had an assistant GM at an NFL team tell me that he thinks that he's the next Michael Parsons.
I don't know what position he's going to play in the NFL. I got to be honest with you. I think a lot of people are going to be saying
well. I know this team very, very, very well, and so Ohio State fans, take this for what it's worth. When I said it 2 years ago that the Texans were moving up for Will Anderson and all these different things, they were going to do it. Joe, there's a lot of teams that might be moving up for Arvell Reese. Just throwing that out there. Mm. What do I know? What do I know? I'm just telling you. But look, A&M has a chance to do it, but I do think they have a tough draw here. Speaking of another SEC team, Joe, we're on this path again about talking about what teams in the playoff field got to do to win a national title. Outside of James Madison, outside of Tulane, I don't really give them a shot to win it. You know another team that I give no shot to win it right now?
Who?
I got to see Alabama rebound because I think you're taking on water. So as we continue down this path of talking about teams winning a national title, I do think Bama has the talent to do it. But there's a lot of things that we got to talk about. What does Alabama have to do? You know, that you put on your helmet right here, you have 18 national titles. What do you have to do to get to number 19? So, Joe, I ask you, if Alabama is going to shock the world, and I do think it would be a little bit of a shock that Alabama, who's kind of taken on water the last month, would be able to make a playoff run and get to a national title, what are they going to have to do it?
They're at plus 2,200 odds on FanDuel, by the way, to win a national championship. I think that the books recognize that it's a difficult uphill battle for them. Blake, there's a lot of things. This is one of those teams where I don't have many reasons to buy into them going on a run, and I more so have, hey, these things got to get corrected, and they got to get corrected fast. Mm-hmm. They have to, simply enough, get healthy all the way around. One of these teams that was super banged up at the end of the year, you don't have Jam Miller. When Jam Miller is available, he's a key piece for your offensive success. Like, first and foremost, this all comes through their offense because their offense can be one of the best in the country, and they have taken 4 steps backward. They need to be deliberate. If Jam Miller comes back, give him the ball, give him 25 touches. If he is fully healthy and he's ready to go by the time that this game kicks off next weekend, they need to give him the ball more because their best offensive outings, in my eyes, have been the ones where they were deliberate about getting him the ball and letting him go to work. And in tandem with that, their offensive line needs to be better. They need to be more consistent. More specifically, they got to handle pressure better. When teams have sent heat at them, Georgia and Auburn both did relentlessly. They have given up too many pressures to Ty Simpson. Ty Simpson is a really good quarterback who has been in hell. I am actually genuinely annoyed by these narratives that Ty Simpson's a bad quarterback because he's not. Go back and watching what he did during the season in the month of October. He made ridiculous plays, had a number of huge throws for Alabama to succeed and to win late. He has been put in a position where he cannot succeed because the pocket is collapsing so quickly. I got to see them handle pressure better, man, because that right now is really, really killing them.
So the number one thing is they got to get healthy. I mean, they have way too many guys out. It's been why they've been taking on water. I don't think it's a coaching problem. I don't think it's a talent problem. I think it's an injury problem that's been plaguing them over the last month. You talk about Ty Simpson there, who made a lot of massive throws in the month of October when he had more of a consistent unit, I guess is a way to say it, when guys weren't in and out of the lineup. Go to Missouri, you face off against Vanderbilt, you face off against Georgia, and you win all of those games, all of those being ranked games. And then because of your brutal schedule, Joe, the truth of the matter was they faced off against a brutal schedule and guys got hurt. And that is unfortunate, but that is the truth. If I'm going to say anything to the University of Alabama, it is this. Your interior, Joe, hold on. I've been saying this for the last 60 days, and we monitor comments and all this, and Bama fans have been really mad at me for saying this. Your interior offensive line is not living up to the bill. It just isn't. When you have I don't want to say Ty Simpson's non-mobile because he can move a little bit. He's not like Garrett Nussmeier out there. He's not non-mobile. However, when you have a quarterback that wants to step up in the pocket constantly and make throws, what do you have to have? I could make an argument as a former offensive line guy. The interior of the offensive line has to be better than tackle. And Blake, tackles is the best. I get that. I understand it. But I look at the quarterbacks that had success that remind me a lot of what Ty Simpson's game is about. I think of Drew Brees. I think of Tom Brady. I think of all of those guys. They had constant guys in the interior that kept making Pro Bowls. What does that mean? You got to be able to lockstep and control the line of scrimmage in your interior. What did Oklahoma do? What did Georgia do? What did C.J. Allen and company do? Joe, where did the pressure come from? Where did all of it come from? Up the middle. So the last 60 days that we've been talking about this, I saw it 60 days ago, and we've been talking about it. It was as much Alabama football as we've seen. Coaches adjusted. Georgia adjusted. These teams adjusted because in the interior of your offensive line, you've not been good. It's also translated not being able to run the football. Bottom line, you're not getting up to the second level quick enough. You're not being able to wedge into the second level, and that is what's plaguing Ty Simpson. If he can't generate rushing yards by himself, then he's not going to be able to do it by himself. Your superstar at wide receiver and Ryan Williams, he's got to start stepping up. Joe, I see a dude that's disinterested in some regards. Jeremy Bernard is your best offensive weapon, without a doubt. Get him the ball more. I think that they're trying to be, I don't want to say too cute, but they're trying to fit everything and everyone in. No. Get Jeremy Bernard the ball 10 times and get out of his way. It's like the team you just played. Joe, what did they do? What did Georgia do offensively? They just kept throwing the ball right at Branch and said, all right, here's the screen. But he's an electric athlete. Here's the screen. We're just going to get the ball out. We don't give a Rudy Poo. We have a backup center in the game. We're just going to throw the ball and let athletes be athletes. I don't know if Alabama can win this. They're the team that, like, I look at this like JMU, Tulane. It's Alabama for me. However, you have a rematch with Oklahoma that you have not been able to figure out. Newsflash to Alabama fans. In round one, before we talk about Indiana, before we talk about you making a playoff run, here's what's about to happen to you. Brent Venables is about to send ungodly amount of pressure right at Ty Simpson. It's going to come from the interior. And it is going to mean that Ryan Grubb and Kalen DeBoer, they're going to have to get the ball out quick. And, Joe, they're going to have to play some 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Can they get healthy and sustain here? Maybe. But, man, offensively, they're missing something massive. And I think it's a big deal to do with the interior of their offensive line because, man, defensively, they haven't been bad. Georgia got a hold of them late because they were on the field so much. Defensively, you've been fine. But, it's the interior of your offensive line has struggled, and you have struggled because of it.
I also think just like looking at
your loss to Florida State, by the way, what was the problem? Let's rewind 2.5 months ago. What was the problem there? It looked like that they got out-physicaled. It looked like that they gave up. Well, they got punched in the mouth. That line of scrimmage got punched in the mouth. Everybody talks about the Nick Saban's factor not being there. Yeah, it's because the interior of your offense and sometimes defensive lines, quite frankly, have gotten patty smacked. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I mean, they have to set the tone a lot better, and I think that's been really underwhelming. I think just generally there is a world where they can, if they can get back to that October version of themselves, winning a national championship is possible, but I almost worry that it's too far gone. I have concerns going up and just that already, if you get past Oklahoma, which is going to be a battle, Indiana is a really tough matchup for you because they had set the tone against Ohio State up front with their front seven. They're going to try and do the same exact thing. They're going to take away your run game. They're going to ask Ty Simpson to do everything. They're going to send pressure. They're going to get after you. it's going to require better execution. It feels like this team has been playing really loosely. We know what they're capable of. Can you get back to that? Will ultimately be the biggest question.
Indiana and Oklahoma is going to do the same exact thing that really Indiana did to Ohio State. They're going to play quarters behind, sending pressure. I mean, Cho, did you see the PFF thing that they ran quarters like 79% of the time and made Julian saying just?
I didn't realize that was what they.
I mean, like they basically went quarters to man and just said, "All right, whatever." We'll see. All right, last team that we're going to talk about here on chances of winning a national title is a fan base that loves me right now. A fan base that can't get enough of me and that probably wants to put a statue out front of me right now, and that's the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Joe, I know that they're mad at me. I know that Texas Tech fans hate my guts, but what does Texas Tech have to do to win a national title?
Blake, I think the first and foremost important thing is that they have a elite front seven. They've got one of the best front sevens in college football. There is nothing fake about this. David Bailey, Romello Height, elite pass rushers. Jacob Rodriguez, one of the best linebackers in the country. And then you've got Roberts. You've got a lot of the guys in the mix that are super, super underrated. Mm-hmm. In order to go on a run, Blake, that group has to continue doing what they're doing. Got to completely overwhelm and smother teams offensively. They need to keep these games low scoring. They need to control the pace of these games. Keep your opponent in check and win through your defense. The minute that they start giving up big plays, and this happens to any good defense, once an offense finds that little crack and they start giving up big plays, I worry that things could get away from them. And the reason why, in the second part with this, if their offense isn't effectively finishing in the red zone and they're not
be careful.
No, I'm not saying I'm not as critical as you are. If they're not able to control the time of possession as much as they could and finish off drives the way that they need to, that will set them up for failure. Like, we got to see Baron Morton, the offense, tick up that success that they're having in the red zone. They got to finish. They can't do what they did against BYU twice. They have to put points on the board. And most importantly, you have a front seven that does a really good job of forcing turnovers. You can't leave any situation in any of these games coming up. If you're able to put together a run, you have to score touchdowns off of those turnovers. You cannot get into situations where you're kicking field goals or you're punting. You just can't. They have an opportunity to be a team that is chaotic, that does damage, that shocks everybody, but it all comes down to finishing. Finishing is one of the most important core tenets in football, and it is going to be surely emphasized for the Red Raiders.
I want to clarify what was said the other day from me.
Okay.
Because a clip went out there. Number one, I did not say that this defense, especially front seven, is not good. That did not come out of my mouth, even though that has been clipped, and people are like, Blake has said that this Texas Tech team is fraudulent. No. It's not what I said. I'll get to the offense in just a moment. However, they do have one of the best front sevens in the country. They get after you. Jacob Rodriguez is a dog. Their secondary at safety will come down and light you up defensively. Joe, they have been electric. I don't think, however, and something that I want to monitor here, if they go up against Oregon as an example, I just don't think that you've seen an offense that can challenge you vertically. I don't know of an offense that can push you the way that potentially Oregon, or even if you were to beat Oregon, like Indiana or some of these other teams, can literally get vertical on you and do some good things offensively. Joe, I don't have enough words about their defense. They've completely revamped it. They're physical along the line of scrimmage. Their linebacker play has not been good. It's been great with Jacob Rodriguez. The way that they get after the passer, instinctually, this is what I said in that same segment that got clipped. I think instinctually, they have the best front seven when it comes to just understanding, reading plays, and what they've done. However, to double down on what I said the other day, Joe, after the first initial touchdown by BYU this past Saturday, the 14-play, 90-yard drive, BYU had a 3-and-out. They had a turnover on downs. They had a punt. They had the end of half on a kneel down. They had a missed field goal. They threw an interception. They had another 3 and out. They had a fumble. They had another 3 and out. And then they had another 3 and out. Joe, they gave you every opportunity. By the way, in all of that, they ran less than 20 plays. Let me repeat what I just said. You're leading them at half 13-7. They ran less than 20 plays on you in 10 drives, Joe. In 10 drives, you have an interception, you have a fumble, you have a turnover on downs. How many times are they going to turn the ball over and give you the ball back? I get the score is 34-7. What is being missed is what you brought up earlier. In game 1 versus BYU and in game 2 versus BYU, you should have beaten them worse than what you did because this offense for BYU is not good. Your defense completely dominated them. In 14 quarters. In 8 quarters, their offense for BYU scored 14 points. How many turnovers did your defense and special teams have to force before you look in the mirror and say, in the red zone, we're not executing well enough? We're not. Offensively, they got a lot of playmakers. You know how much I love Terrace Carter. You know how I love their running game, how good and explosive that they've been there. What I'm trying to say here is, and I will continue to say it, you cannot do that versus Oregon. You can't, or you're going to be on the outside looking in. You can't do that versus Indiana. You can't, if by whatever happenstance, there's another defense on your side of the bracket that you can't do that to either. I look at Oregon, I look at Indiana, and I look at Oklahoma, and even Alabama for that regard. Joe, those defenses and teams are better than BYU. And if you give them opportunities, if you continue to give teams in this playoff field those level of opportunities, you're going to say, man, with our best team, we have a really good defense. Why did we not win? And I'm telling you right now, the reason that you won't is because you're not executing offensively when it matters the most. You can hate me for it. You can clip us for it. You can clip me for it. You're not absolved to every other team that has lost this season that's had that same struggle. You're not.
I think that this is the good way of putting it, that you're leaving a lot of opportunities on the field. You are doing a lot of tremendous things defensively, and you're doing a lot of things that most defenses in the college football playoff field are not able to accomplish. It's really impressive how good your defense is. You're dominating teams. Most of the opponents that you faced haven't been like super quality opponents. Very commendable how you kick the crap out of the highly ranked, or not the ranked Big 12 teams. I think it's incredibly respectable. Imagine how much better you could be if you were able to finish. I don't think it's a knock. I don't think that they're fraudulent, because I think
offensively they are.
I think that ultimately, though, when we're looking at all the woes and the problems that all these different teams have, they have one of the more correctable issues, because they're getting 80% of the way there. They're getting down into the red zone. They're just not finishing. And sometimes that takes simple, better execution, different play calling. We talked about it with Ohio State, where they got to execute and call better plays in short yardage situations. It's very possible for them, I think, out of any team, to shock people's expectations as a non-blue blood program to get to a national championship if they finish. But we can't get into a situation against a team like Indiana, or if they were to advance further and to get to a national championship. Well, and also Oregon's one of these teams. If you ended up playing Ohio State or Georgia, you can't survive if you are going up against teams where the margins are closer and you're not starting hot and you're not putting up points on the board when you're given chances to. So I agree with that. I think that the execution here is critical for Texas Tech.
Joe, by the way, I'm looking at it right now. You can go to NCAA.com's statistics. Mm-hmm. Defensively, Texas Tech has faced one top 65 offense. One. One.
Okay. I don't think that takes away from how good their defense is.
No, I don't either. I don't either. However, when I look at this, you know who's in the top 10? Or top 15, excuse me? Oregon. You know who has one of the best defenses in the country as well as you do? Oklahoma. You know who's really good on offense? Indiana. They might have the Heisman Trophy winner. So, Texas Tech, this is how I'm going to end this here. Welcome to the field. Welcome to being a part of the big boys. You've done everything that you need to do to be a part of the big boys. Welcome to the show. We have been massive Texas Tech fans here. I still am. You got to understand how people talk about the big. We just got done obliterating Alabama for all of their faults. For all of their faults. We talked the same about A&M, a team that's in your own state. We talked about Ohio State. They got it. Hold on. What's the difference of us saying that Ohio State hasn't been tested and then the first time that
you didn't call them fraudulent though.
Okay.
In their
sorry
defense.
That your feelings got hurt.
I just think you didn't need to use that word. I don't think you need to use that word because
it called their run game fraudulent. And it was.
Okay.
Welcome to the big show. You have a situation where you do the same things that you did versus BYU, and Oregon's going to run that thing up. Y'all think I'm playing with you. All right. You go right on ahead. And let me tell you what's going to happen. You keep clipping me. You keep coming after me. One of you fuckers came after one of my kids. I'm going to fucking obliterate you now. Don't run. Don't say I'm coming back after the fact. I've been on this show 3 times this week telling you what's going to happen. I'm promising you it's happening.
All right.
I have had no bigger conviction in my life other than that time that Susie Q gave me a kiss and I didn't give her a kiss back. Okay? But the long short in this, welcome to the big show. You do that again, you're going to get your asses whooped. Come after me. Here's the real truth. Come after me. Don't come after my children.
I never get people got to just chill with that shit.
They got to chill with that. Omar the Tiger. $5 super chat says, I'm just here for the Christmas pencil. The Christmas pencil has been a big deal, Joe.
I'm surprised that this is something as random and small as that has become such a hit. So I think it's. I'm
getting clipped all the time. Christmas pencils. I'm
random.
I'm the Bayou Christmas version of Lee Corso. Not so fast, my friend. Adam, our good friend Adam says, Joe, they told Freeman to be noble, not no bowl.
Thanks for the super chat. I have no comment.
It's good. That's a good dad joke. Adam's a dad. It's a good dad joke. Fish with a $5 super chat says the problem for Tech is that Oregon can play anyone's ball game, whether it be a low scoring, see Iowa, Penn State, or a shootout, see USC, or in between, see Washington.
Yeah, they've had a lot of diverse outcomes, and I think that they've been one of the more amendable teams where they've been able to be like fluid with how they adapt. So that's a big reason to buy in.
Agreed. He also says Stein runs same scheme Dilly does at Arizona State, and he put up 26. It's not wrong, but I mean the problem with that is that Morton was out for that game.
Yeah,
right.
That's important. That things will probably be very different for them.
I mean, so they faced 2 teams in the top 60 or top 66 in total offense.
I just don't think that the defense is where I would have any issue because they.
No, but at the same time, we're literally coming off a game where Ohio State was dominating everybody, and then the first time that they go up against a top 15 offense, they have
13 points.
That is true. But at the same time, when they needed the play, a no-star wide receiver went vertical on them.
I just think if there's anything to be worried about, it's their offense because they're one of those teams that the eye test checks for me on Texas Tech.
I agree with you. But you can't keep doing that versus a team like Oregon. You're going to get beat if you do that.
Right.
All right. No tortillas for me. We'll see y'all on Sunday. Y'all have a good day. Peace.